Welcome to day 11 of Shadowhunters month, and today it's another Why I Love video. And as you can probably tell from the title, I'm going to be talking about why I love Mark and Cristina. Of course being Mark Blackthorne and Cristina Rosales from mainly the Dark Artifices or Artifices trilogy. Well, will be a trilogy when the third book comes out next month. But Mark has popped up in a few other things as well. Mainly, he featured quite prominently in story in Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. But yeah, this is an interesting one to talk about with these two, because I don't really know how well loved they are together. I am talking about them as individuals as well as a couple, but there is very much a I suppose a love triangle between these two and Kieran. And a lot of people like Mark and Kieran, whereas I do not. But that's not a video, really, that I want to make. I don't want to say why I don't like this pairing, because everyone's different, and yeah, I just never really connected with that couple. But this is interesting because we don't know the full story with Mark and Cristina yet. I'm sure we'll find out either way if they'll get together or not when the third and final Dark Artifices book comes out next month. And I'm keeping everything crossed that, you know, they get together, because I really love them together. But we'll have to wait and see. So obviously I can't analyse too much in like them being an actual couple or anything yet, whereas I could for some other couples, because they're not officially a thing. They clearly both have very strong feelings for each other, but obviously Kieran is in the mix as well, so there's a lot. It's a very complicated kind of thing. So I can only talk about really the first two Dark Artifices books and how I feel about the characters and their relationship so far, and why I'm 100% invested in this pairing, and why I absolutely hope they get together at some point, and if they don't, I'll be devastated. But yeah, if you love Mark and Cristina, please let me know, because I hope I'm not the only one, and people are thinking, why the fuck are you doing a video on this? Obviously spoilers for those books. But yeah, who should I talk about first? Well, Mark kind of appeared first, so we'll start with him, because we'll talk about them as individuals before we get to them together. Mark is one of my favourite characters from the books, any book in Shadowhunters verse. It helps, I think, that I have a really deep love for the Blackthorne family, in the same way I have a deep love for the Lightwoods. If that's your surname, there's a chance I'm going to absolutely love you. But Mark, for me, is one of the most interesting of the Blackthorne characters. The journey we've seen him go on in such a short amount of time, and the amount he's gone through, is quite something, and I am very much drawn to like the tragic characters, and Mark was kind of the definition of that when, you know, everything happened with Sebastian Morgenstern, and he was taken to the Wild Hunt, and he's with them, and he spent so long thinking people were going to rescue him, but the Clave decided not to save him from the Wild Hunt, and he kind of had to adapt to their ways and their way of living, and all of a sudden, before we knew it, he was back home with his family, but he felt like he didn't belong there. He felt very much like an outcast, and wasn't sure if it was even real or not. And he'd already been used to being an outcast before he was even taken, because obviously he was half fairy along with Helen. So he felt an outcast already, but then this just made things 10 times worse, because he was a stranger to his own family. So nearly everything was taken away from him, and that tragedy I find so interesting and endearing about him, and the way he's had to tackle and negotiate trying to reconnect with his family, which I think is such a beautiful story to tell, and I hope we kind of come full circle with that in the next book when that comes out next month. So yeah, the fact that he's a Blackthorne really helps with like the family ties, and I really like, in particular, his bond with Julian, but obviously my favourite bond he has is with Cristina, but we'll get on to that. And yeah, he has this kind of huge like guilt complex over him because he feels like he's missed out on his, you know, brothers and sisters growing up. And he's especially gonna feel that burden with Livy now she's dead. Because he's not gonna probably get the chance to reconnect with her completely, and I imagine that's gonna be a huge source of guilt for him in the next book. And I'm not ready to see him suffer because Mark has suffered so much. And he's still trying to, you know, come out the other side of that pain and work through it. And a big factor in kind of dealing with that pain in the first place was Cristina. And they just have such a beautiful connection for me. And in terms of Cristina, I love mainly what a trustworthy person she can be. She made fast friends with Emma, and I really like their kind of friendship. They kind of die for each other and do anything for each other, and I really love the way that that bond has been written. They can have a laugh, but they know when things get serious. And I think Christine was such kind of a stern and strong character, and she shows an incredible amount of strength, which I really admire. It's nice that she can have a joke every now and again. I feel like there's a lot of complexity to her, and we haven't even really scratched the surface of everything she as a character has to offer, and that excitement and that potential for me is why I really, really adore her as a character. And yeah, the Blackthorns absolutely trust her almost instantly as soon as she arrived at the LA Institute, which kind of speaks to the purity and goodness of her character. And she's had this muddled mess of history with like everything with Diego and Jamie, and then now with Mark and Kira, history's kind of repeating itself, which I think is kind of an interesting thing. Not in, you know, identical ways, but she's been through some stuff. And the thing I love most about Christine is probably, you know, she has such a huge heart. As we kind of found out when she was talking about discovering what happened with Mark when she was 13 years old, and how she cried when she found out that the Clave weren't going to rescue Mark from the Wild Hunt, and she kind of had that connection with him ever since she was 13 years old, and by the time the Dark Artifices books come around she's 18, and suddenly she finds herself face to face with this guy she's kind of been not obsessed with, for lack of a better word, obsessed with, for half a decade. Which brings me right into why I love them as a pairing. And not just romantically, I think right from the off they've had this instant connection. I really felt it right from the off. She was completely kind of sympathetic and even empathetic in a way to Mark's situation, and that's been a constant. She's always really understood what was best for him, and that's because she's always had this love of like fairy things, and one of the reasons she came to the LA Institute was because she'd heard about like Mark's story and everything, and she wanted to try and find a better kind of solution than the cold piece that was put in place. She kind of is working to break a much fairer truce in the name of people like Mark, and I think that's admirable in itself. But yeah, they have this instant connection, this instant bond as soon as Mark arrives at the Institute, and she's like, everyone, you need to give him space. She can calm him down really easily, and she's the first person Mark really opens up to ever since he returns, because she kind of grounds him, and he absolutely needed that when he first got back to the Institute, and he found that kind of salvation in Cristina. So right from the off they had this really powerful connection that I thought was just such a beautiful thing. And yeah, they completely kind of, Cristina completely understood Mark's situation, and it was nice for Mark to have someone there who was completely on his side, and he felt really comfortable with Cristina almost instantly, which I really, really liked. And they have like these really pure moments of friendship, like when Cristina cuts his hair But at the same time, as they get to know each other more and more, there's this real romantic connection there, which I just find, oh, so beautiful. I will be genuinely devastated if they don't get together. You know, I feel like with Kieran, that's what Mark needed at the time. I feel like it was a relationship of circumstance more than anything else. Because if Mark had never been in the Wild Hunt, you know, I don't think he ever would have gone with someone like Kieran. And obviously Kieran did kind of betray them and everything, and even if he doesn't remember doing that, he still did it. I understand it's hard, and I understand Mark could be torn between these two people. But there's also like this weird thing, there's like, are Cristina and Kieran going to be a thing, which, oh god, I hope not. But yeah, I feel like with the whole thing with Cristina, ever since she was 13, kind of knowing about Mark and being really interested in his story and everything, and that was kind of an inspiration for her even going to the LA Institute. It felt like it was kind of destiny that these two would meet and come together in this way. And that's kind of like this, pardon the pun, fairy tale kind of aspect to how they met and their relationship and their bond, which I just really, really like. And yeah, Mark just felt so comfortable with her right from the off and opened up to her, and they have this genuine admiration. Even if you take away the romance, there's this really deep admiration that they have for each other, which I really, really like. And this deep trust in each other as well, because, you know, when Mark went to Ferry to save Kieran, he left Cristina a letter. You know, she was the one he told, in the knowledge that she would do the right thing and, you know, give it to the right people, because he had complete faith in her and he truly believed in her. And what I find beautiful about the whole thing with that is when Mark came back to the LA Institute, he didn't really know what was real or not, he didn't know what to believe, and yet he truly believed in Cristina, and I think that's just such a lovely thing. And then the whole thing with like the fairy binding spell that they ended up having put on them when they were in Fairy, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that Mark and Cristina would quite literally have a spell put on them that binds them together, because again it's playing into the whole destiny and fate thing. And I do find it really funny that they organically had this connection and this tie to each other that they couldn't seem to be able to break, because Mark even says at some point, you know, he thinks about Cristina all the time. So they have all that thing, this organic connection, and then they are physically connected through this binding spell, and the parallels with that I think is quite beautiful. And yeah, just how Cristina always kind of had this love of fairy things, and she's fighting for justice for people like Mark and Helen and all the downworlders who've kind of been mistreated by the cold piece. Like how she gets really excited when she gets to like fly one of those fairy carriages or something, or ride in one. She has this real appreciation and love and admiration for like the fairy world and everything like that. So it's hardly a surprise that she's very much drawn to Mark in that way. But the fact that not only do they kind of meet, but they end up developing really strong feelings for each other, I think is a really kind of powerful, uplifting story. And I feel like they really do need each other, and they bring out the best in each other. I feel like without Mark, Cristina may not have as much fun, and I feel like Mark makes her smile a lot more than she would have done, like when they went to that party in Fairy together. So while Mark lets Cristina have a bit of fun, otherwise she may not have, especially with the angst that is her relationship with Diego, Cristina brings the necessary grounding to Mark that he wouldn't have had otherwise, because he spent so long with the Wild Hunt and in Fairy and everything. You know, he wasn't really sure what was real and what was going on, what to believe. But she grounded him, and at the same time they kind of balance each other out really perfectly, in my opinion. And I think it's just such a beautiful kind of friendship, and then later romance, hopefully. So obviously they have kissed before, and there is very much a romantic connection there. It's whether or not they'll be able to you know, properly get together. I really hope they do. That's kind of my, aside from everything with Emma and Julia we've got going on, and I hope there's a way around the whole Parabatai curse thing, my biggest hope for the third book is Mark and Cristina getting together, because I just think they both are really deserving of that love and that relationship, and they're both such brilliant characters in their own right, but they kind of fill the gap in what's missing in the other person's kind of life. I really do see them as like two puzzle pieces that just fit together. And again, the whole thing with like fate and destiny, is almost a magical connection that they have, and it's a really, really lovely, wholesome connection. And obviously they've gone through their fair share of troubles already, even though they're not even together yet. Which is, again, adding a sense of realism to it, because every couple fights. But I really hope they work things out, and I love the strength both the characters have. I love what they bring out in each other. I love who they stand for as individuals, and I'm really, really rooting for them. And it's such a beautiful connection they have. I just really hope it works out, and I really love them both. So fingers crossed that it'll all work out for them in book 3, but we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. As long as they're both happy at the end, I think that's the main thing, because they deserve it after everything. So yeah, that is why I love Mark and Cristina as separates, as individuals and together. So yeah, let me know if you love Mark and Cristina together like I do. If not, if you like Mark and Kieran, that's fine, just don't attack me. And yeah, who are other characters that you love, or other pairings that you love, feel free to let me know. And until tomorrow's video, thanks for watching.